It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Hey, today I want to talk about Konica Minolta's acquisitions underneath the all-covered umbrella. But folks, I got to tell you something. I started thinking about this. You know, I've been a little bit critical of Konica Minolta. Hey, share the numbers around all-covered. Share the numbers on your IT business in the United States. Really dig into the details. Tell us what's going on with that. And I finally figured out why they don't want to do that. I could be wrong. They can answer it in the comments, but I think I figured it out. If they tell everybody how successful they are with all-covered, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're killing it, that they're knocking it out of the park, and they really are successful. If they share that success with the dealers, then the dealers are going to say to themselves, well, let's stop selling print. We got to sell IT. We got to double down. Look how successful Konica Minolta is with their IT services deliverable. Call them up. Tell them we're not going to do print anymore. We just want to do IT. That could be the reason. I don't think it is either. But ladies and gentlemen, wouldn't it be nice if we knew what was going on over there at Konica Minolta? And I want to say this. I've been a little bit critical of Konica Minolta not sharing these numbers. But I also feel sorry for the current leadership at Konica Minolta. And the reason I feel sorry for them is because I believe they got a mess to clean up from the last administration, which ran around and bought up everybody. Because, folks, here's the reality. If this was a home run, if they were knocking it out of the park, they'd be sharing those numbers. They would. Our industry loves to talk about how successful they are. Come on. When they win the state contract, don't they want to talk about it? We give each other more awards than any industry out there. I mean, awards, all kinds of awards. Maybe BLI should have an award based on math instead of based on nuttiness. Like, who cares about the most consistent color copier line of the year? What if the BLI award was for the most growth organically in reoccurring revenue for IT services? Wouldn't that be something? Maybe BLI could give out an award for the best fee-based assessment in the industry. You see, folks, if BLI did that and there was an award around it, well, then maybe our industry would pay attention to the math and the details instead of the absurdity in press releases that are announcing something that's going to happen and no one ever substantiates what really happened. And so today what I want to do is I want to get on the Sharp Interactive board. I want to talk about some of these acquisitions that went on over at Konica Minolta. And let's see if we can't get Konica Minolta to start, jumping up there and answer some of these questions. It'd be awesome. It could probably help our industry. They have so much data. Think about it, folks. They've been doing this for over a decade. More than any other OEM in the United States. They've made huge amounts of acquisitions. Think of the details and the data they could share with the entire print world about moving into IT services. Surely they would want to do that if they had all these details and all these numbers and everything was glowing. They would want to share that. Folks, even if it's not a good story, there's still value in that. There's a lot of value in that. But the industry, for the last we're talking about almost 15 years, folks, trying to get into IT services, and it's really not been a home run. And the reason is because there's no one sharing the real math. There's no one being held accountable to the real details of the math. Recently, I heard a senior leader at one of the big roll-ups talking about their IT services business. There was no math in the whole entire presentation. It's an hour I'll never get back. But in all reality, I was hoping for some details around the math. Here's where our organic growth is. Here's what our reoccurring revenue is. Here's what our acquisition revenue is. Here's what our project revenue is. Yeah, none of that stuff. It was all about how fun things are going to be to sell IT services. It was all about the marketing component. Folks, the details in the math. And without the math, it's just pure bullshit, as I keep saying. But let's go back in time. 2011, Konica Minolta buys a company called All Covered. Since then, 17 other companies. And ladies and gentlemen, here's something interesting. Back in 2012, All Covered buys a company called MSP, Thin Solutions and PC Solutions. And here's what the press release tagline was. Company on track to becoming the largest IT service provider for small businesses in the United States. That was around the same time, April of 2012, that the leaders of All Covered stood on stage at a CRN meeting and told the whole world they were going to be $1 billion IT services business, the biggest IT services business for the small business in the United States. Great aspiration. Where'd they end up? Recently, I did some calculation on some math of what I believe the total revenue for the United States was for Konica Minolta and for their print business and their IT services business. And it was like $1.5 billion was the number I came up with. That number never got challenged, so I'm thinking I'm probably pretty close. Well, surely Konica Minolta's all covered isn't doing $1 billion of the $1.5 billion they're doing in the United States. I mean, the print business has to be worth more than $500 million, right? So obviously, that aspiration of being the biggest in the United States, having $1 billion in revenue, didn't pan out. Look, a lot of stuff doesn't pan out, not a big deal. But when you listen to the press release when it all first happens, you think, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, these people are really killing it. They're knocking it out of the park. But when you dig into the details and the math, you find out, well, that's not really the case. Folks, I'm convinced that Konica Minolta is going to get rid of all their direct operations. I'm not the only one that believes this. And if they do this, what happens to all cover and all this IT infrastructure that they bought? Where does all that go? Is there any value there today? Maybe they could spin that off. What are the real numbers? If Konica Minolta exits their direct operations, depending on where that goes, the IT piece could be confusing. And the IT piece might have to go out on its own. You know, recently in Chicago, there was a $300 million IT services company called IT Savvy who spun off their print business. They didn't say what the revenue on that was. There's probably some lemonade stand stuff, who knows. But they got out of it. They didn't want the print business. And a local dealer there in the market picked that up. So in other words, IT services and print without real true integration with some kind of sensible deliverable, a lot of times people don't want them. Our industry thought, let's put all this together and build these big companies that sell IT to all our thousands of print customers would be valuable, but we're finding out a decade later that it's not really that valuable. We're finding out that most of them haven't done it. And so the question is, what if we all really understood and knew what the numbers were it all covered? Look, the private equity folks, they're not going to tell us the numbers. The private companies, they're not going to tell us the numbers. They don't have to. They're private. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if Visual Edge would stand on stage and share all the details and the numbers, kind of like the way I did with Milton's numbers when I gave the presentation in Asheville, North Carolina? I mean, can you imagine if they got up there and really dug into those numbers? Here's where we started. Here's where we're at. Don't do this, guys and gals, because this is terrible. No, they don't do any of that. No one shares their numbers. But yet when the dealer owners get together and they talk about print, they're more than happy to share the numbers. They're more than happy to win all these crazy awards that mean absolutely nothing to anybody except for them and throw something on their website. I'm telling you, I believe the future of us being successful, the print channel being successful in IT services, the future could be in just the fact if we could just get BLI to change their awards and start putting together some awards based on real math, real details, real analytics, and then see if that pure pressure doesn't help our industry pivot and change and really do what they need to do to be successful. Do y'all remember this one? All Covered acquires MWA, a leader in the ERP space, July of 2018. 4 years ago coming up, July, 4 years. What happened to that? We've seen the press release on that, right? That was the ERP, it's going to change the whole world. Wouldn't it be nice to have an update? Who's left on it from when they bought it? How many dealers have they got on the platform? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Did they really just buy that so they could get the SAP licenses so that All Covered could sell those? And if they are, how many are they selling? What have they done with that SAP business? Wouldn't you like to know that kind of stuff? Folks, I'm telling you, within All Covered, based on all these acquisitions, based on their footprint in the United States, they would have a tremendous amount of data that could really help inspire an industry into doing some things that are right and inspire an industry into not doing some things that didn't work out. But without the details, without that education, how do we know? I think it's up to Konica. They're the biggest in the room. They brag the most. I think it's up to them to really come to the industry with some real details around what they're doing around IT and really get into the numbers. I mean, big time, even if they're bad. Because if everybody knew what was good and what was bad, their path to a continued relevance would be so much easier. Just some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.